Buckle up, Camp Pros, and get ready to launch into the future of summer camp with Camp Ahead. Camp Ahead helps Camp Pros think about the future so they're not caught off guard. Climate mitigation, heat, gender, war, demographics, economics, artificial intelligence. Are we ready as an industry? Camp Ahead, exploring the futurology of the summer camp industry. You can find our contact information and the many show notes from each episode at gocamp.pro/campahead.
This episode of Camp Ahead is brought to you by Camp Tendons. Meet Camp Tendons, the first app that makes attendance active. Parents update transportation and attendance instantly. Staff greet campers confidently, and administrators see it all in real time. Less tracking, more connecting. Learn more at camptendons.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Camp Ahead. We are here today with just Joe. Just Joe. No Jess, no KJ, but we do have a guest, Travis Allison, who is one of the founders of Go Camp Pro. Travis, how are you today?
Fine, good, man. It's good to be podcasting with you again.
It is good to be podcasting. After almost 15 years on Camp Hacker, we're back together, and it's just the two of us, which is good. It would be interesting to have KJ and Jess on because they offer such different perspectives than I do. But it's super awesome to always get a chance to talk to an old friend. So.
Yeah, man.
Camp Ahead is thinking about the future of camp and always thinking sort of about futures and what we can develop for, as I talk about it, this idea of looking at future scenarios, seeing how they play out in our mind, and then choosing which one we want to aim towards. And today you want to talk about the resilient camp blueprint. And how do you think, tell us about what it is and how it might fit into futures thinking.
Yeah, 100%. So this comes, Joe, from me hearing from a lot of camp directors that they are so overwhelmed by the new demands on this job. And every year it's more and more. And they just feel, A, super burned out, but B, like they can't do the part of the job that they enjoy or the part of the job that aligns with what they're good at. And so in trying to get people to take me up on my offer to help with marketing and communications, this keeps coming up. And so I thought if we look bigger picture, longer term, like Camp Ahead, I think the problem is that, well, I think the benefit of being a resilient camp means that your leadership gets space to think and plan and do the things that they enjoy. And I think that's all sustainability stuff for camps. We have always undervalued labor at camp because we've been allowed to legally in many states and provinces. That's changing, but it's still sort of an ingrained thing that we undervalue labor. Most camp directors don't know how much they cost their camp every hour. And so because of that, we tend to just knuckle down and do the work. And that just means that people are burning out. So long term, it costs camps on average $35,000 to get a staff member up to speed in their own training and just lost productivity with a new person. So that's the first part of it, is the people part of it, but really thinking about how long-term camps can plan. So resilience includes trying to develop a nest egg, definitely creating systems, is you can't get to do all the things that you want, including for what I think is very pertinent to this discussion, the long-term thinking and planning and problem solving, if you are just spending all day in emails answering parents' questions. So the system is about clearing the deck for that big picture.
Yeah, all that busy work that people get sucked into.
Yeah.
This is something, Travis, that I encountered when a couple of years ago I did a road trip, a sabbatical from camp for a few weeks. And when I came back, I was writing out, and I wrote out word for word, the future of summer camp and of standalone facilities will be challenging and unclear. It is up to us as stewards of Pierce Williams at this moment in time, December of 2023, to have a vision that sees multiple possible futures and then shape that vision to adapt to the realities that change and morph around us. It will be vital for our organization to have someone who is learning, researching, and analyzing what the future will do to Pierce Williams and the challenges it will have for us. To not plan for change and the future is to plan for the failure of Pierce Williams over the next 10 to 25 years. I took that directly to my board of directors, and it sounds ominous, but it's it's true. I think there's a ton of camps out there who the people either are individually doing all of the work, and all of that work can be busy work, and they haven't figured out, can augmented intelligence do that for us, right? Can we use
Yeah.
AI to help us do those things, or it's not as simple for them. And and then there's lots of camps who also lose staff, like lose executive directors, and it's like they're starting from zero again.
Yeah. 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 So one of the things that just recent stats that just boggles me about our industry, I was talking to folks from the Foundation for Jewish Camps at the Tri-State Conference 20 spring of 24, and they'd done a survey, and in the 2 years previous, the the Jewish camp industry had lost two-thirds of senior leadership at camps. So they just burned out and pulled the chute and left. And I think that pattern matches across the industry. And because it's camp, none of those camps, I can't say none, most of those camps won't have written down what that person knows. It just leaves with that person. And so the next person's starting from scratch. We've felt that in our business because we've always thought of ourselves as the enrichment program for camp directors. But, starting 2023, 2024, so many camp directors aren't ready for enrichment. And so this is all part of it. It's like thinking like, how can I help those camp directors get to the point that they can breathe, that they can think and vision and solve problems? So it's all part of it. Systems, AI, the whole bit.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. I was actually talking at a networking event yesterday about this idea of digital twins. And I'm not sure if you've ever done any research into digital twins, but
Yep.
right now it's used a lot for geographical things like cities or countries, and
Mm.
creating a digital twin to see how things will affect it. And we've actually spoken here at Pierce Williams about the idea of creating a digital twin that sort of gains the knowledge of the position. And I'm not sure how it would work, but the idea that you can ask Joe even after he's retired
Yeah.
what,
Yeah. Yeah.
for some knowledge that might be missing at that moment in time.
Yeah. And I think like camps can do that. The great thing is the technology is here that makes that a lot easier. Any camp person who's going through something is like, probably nobody else knows how to do this here. And they can just record themselves doing it or do a voice note describing all of that. That can all be compiled. And then you have a digital Joe chatbot that has all of your knowledge. So all of those steps after hitting record, describing the thing, send, all of that can be automated. You can have that transcribed, you can have the transcription summarized, and then put into JoeBot, and it's ready to go. So it's so simple to get there now. It's been such a hurdle. It's like basically you'd have to have somebody sit down and interview you because you'd be able to put out a lot of the stuff, but you'd want somebody else's perspective. Be like, but wait, you just glossed over that. Say that again. And now you can just do it. It shows up and your staff's got a JoeBot.
And so when we think about the blueprint idea, Travis, what are the first steps for a camp so a board of directors or an executive director or a summer camp director to do?
Yeah. So the real principle, like, first of all, it's camp, so you need to focus on the people and the impact you're having on kids and young adults and your community. And then you have to develop a mindset of we are going to keep improving bit by bit. We're not going to overwhelm ourselves with how much, we're not going to change everything all at once. We are going to have a camp wide, what sort of, like, just, it's kind of in our constitution as a camp. We get a little bit better every day. And I love a model from a guy named Paul Akers. His company, they do 2-second improvements every day. Every person is responsible to improve their business 2 seconds every day. And it's such a small slice that it's totally possible. So those things like that culture. Another third important principle is we use AI not to replace people, but to give us more space and time for the people that need us. And then we build a culture, and then we measure and celebrate. Like we got to know when we're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So
And so
public and people can get behind it.
Yeah. So people that's one of the hard things, because if people are on their jobs and just just getting by right now, is this adding something new to it? Or is this a single training that will then or a single sort of, what is the commitment people need to make it happen? Because we all get emails about
Yeah.
things to improve. So be it
Yeah.
fundraising, be it staffing, be it how do we, yeah, how do we, what is the commitment people need to make to see the change through? And how will they know when they get to see that change?
Yeah. The key to this, Joe, is to force yourselves to start small. The smallest possible change for a camp you're working in a shared office is putting up on your board how many camp registrations we have this month, how many we had this time last year. So you've now made your data visible and you've made it measurable. So can we get one more camper than last year? That's a simple enough problem. One more camper is really just a phone call. It's calling up somebody who said they're interested and say, "Are you ready?" That is enough of small improvement. And I've learned in my most recent years that myself, and I think a lot of us, I rely on momentum to get things going. When I see a big project, it's just so overwhelming I can't. And I remember in the heights of lockdown saying, I can handle projects that have one step. Two-step projects, I can't handle them. It's just too much. But if I can break anything down to a small one-step project, and then I start to build momentum. I feel good. Feels like I've achieved something. We've got one more camper on the board. Our fundraising numbers didn't raise any money in September last year, and now we've got 150 bucks. Like
Yeah,
those
yeah.
small little things. But yeah, all of that involves a bit of ability to talk to people, to spend time with people, to reach out to the people that you need. And you get that by adopting this mindset of we're going to make it systems, we're going to make it simple, and we're going to make improvements every day.
That's awesome. We recently put our goal for next summer's campership on the wall, and the
Yeah.
question below it is, what have you done today to help
Yep.
that
Yes.
move forward?
And Joe, do you meet about that? Do you have a little
Ev-
what weekly? Like, what did you do this week?
Every Monday, we will bring that up at
Nice.
our Monday management meetings. And it's just one of those things where if you make it visible, right, as with any goal, the same as writing it down every day with a couple of actions you can take towards it. And I like what you said about, you can handle one-step projects. That goes back to the David Allen Getting Things Done book,
Yeah.
right? That
Yep.
if a project is too big, you just haven't thought of a small enough first step,
Yep.
right? Like, because he encourages you to break down everything into
Next
simple
actions.
steps. Yeah.
Yeah. The one next action to
Yeah.
move
The
forward.
one next
I love
action.
it.
Don't write down, I want to build a new house.
Mm-hmm.
That's a goal. That's not an
Yep.
action.
Yeah.
Right. Or right now, as a reference, I'm building a sauna. Right. And so there's a lot of, you can be like, I need to build a sauna. And then there's a whole list of things. You're like, well, what can I do? What can I do for 30 minutes today to help make
Yeah.
that come true?
This episode of Camp Ahead is brought to you by Camptendance, the only real-time attendance system built just for camps. While other software stops at a parent app, Camptendance delivers a complete system, a parent app, a staff app, and an administrative dashboard. That means 3 audiences, parents, staff, and admins, all working from the same live data. When a parent updates transportation changes or a bus stop, staff see it instantly. When staff record an attendance change, administrators are in the know immediately. It's quick, it's seamless, and it reduces mistakes and delays that get in the way of connection. At camp, things change fast. Buses run late, lunches get forgotten, pickup times shift. Camptendance handles it all, so your team can focus on connecting with kids, not paperwork. Camptendance, less time tracking, more time connecting. Learn more at camptendance.com.
What is the first system you would encourage people to start with? Like if they were to create a list of systems and things, what do you think would be the most valuable? Because how many systems are we talking about? Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a camp job, in a camp director's job, it could be hundreds. So I would start with the things that have the biggest payoff. So if you're wasting here's my recommendation in order, Joe. Step number 1, find a voice to text transcriber for your computer and your phone. Any time that you type, you're going 4 times less fast than you can talk, at least. And so anytime you do that, so anything you got to fill in an email, a response, a search, whatever, just have something. I have an app on my Mac that's just, I double tap the function button, which is the far left bottom key. It shows up across the bottom that's recording. I talk. Sometimes it's blather, sometimes it's not. I hit it again, and then it puts that in the thing. That saves me so much time. It is incredible to me that everybody, like, this is the thing I'm yelling. Do this thing.
Do this one thing, get a voice recorder and then and then use it. Use it every day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We could put in the show notes the one I use. I'm not attached to it. It's, from what I understand, it seems these things seem to work better on Macs than on Windows computers. But that's also, like, I haven't put any effort at all into Windows computers. It's just the things I'm reading as a Mac user.
Windows has a built-in system that comes with every Windows system. It's not super awesome, but you can also control your entire computer through it in the accessibilities.
Sure. Yeah.
But it is something, and I don't use that. I use that on my phone to transcribe, and Google has great systems for that on my Pixel.
Yep.
But on my computer, I often think through what am I thinking about versus what I'm replying, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of thinking before, because then do you edit a lot after? You must edit a lot after you've transcribed things, because what we say isn't always what we mean.
Absolutely. And I am it, which kind of brings me to my second and technically third tool. I have an AI-based email system now. So our company runs on Google
Workspace, yeah.
Workspace, yeah, Google Workspace. I have tied in another app called Shortwave into that, and it's on my phone and my computers. And it allows me to do that blather response. And then I'll hit the magic wand button. And it has studied 5 years of my emails before this, finds all the patterns. It finds, if it's someone I'm friendly with, I'll answer this way. I've gone through and given it a couple specific rules. It'll clean up my blather and give me an email that matches my style. And it'll say, here's the details you need to fill in. You said you're going to put your calendar link in. All of that stuff saves me so much time. And so the email system will clean up the blather. I often use ChatGPT. It's like, I'm taking a note. I just listen to this and then give me a cleaner version of this. So that's tool 2 and 3 would be Shortwave and ChatGPT or Gemini, just a blather and say, clean this up for me.
And it's whether it's Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity, they're all going to do the same sort of cleaning up of information. The email programs is where I'm sort of, right now I'm looking at Jace AI, and I'm looking at some other ones which integrate with it as well. And I wonder, and it's one of those things where I've wondered about managing your camp's email through that. So those responses are just ready for you to proof and then send, or proof and add something.
That's right. It's inserts as draft. It doesn't send anything. And I read all those drafts and often will say, that doesn't sound like me. And sometimes it gives me something that I have to put into my instructions. I always sign off my email the same way. And if it's making that up, it's like, okay, I have to go in and say, no, I always sign off email. I know I always sign off an email the same way because it's a text expander shortcut. And so I just make it part of the rules.
And then once you make it part of the rules, it follows it, because all it's doing is ones and zeros. It's just following what you ask it to do.
Yeah.
I think there's some people out there. So let's quickly go over this. What do you say to people who refuse to use AI due to environmental concerns?
Well, I think it's a totally valid concern. And the amount of electricity that AI will use in the world is not going to be impacted by how much you use AI. Now, that's like me driving a car, or me driving a car with the catalytic converter broken is not going to impact the environment. Of course, it's going to have some. The other thing about the environmental thing is that both Google and ChatGPT have recently put out a thing, like your typical chat that a person does with Gemini or ChatGPT could light a light bulb for 3 seconds.
That's fascinating.
And the amount of water, because people are saying, but you use so much water for cooling, but water in cooling systems is a closed loop. So it's not like you're flushing water through a building and out the back end. It's coming back in. You have to add a little bit of water because there's some heat, but it's closed. It's that water's recycling all the time. It goes around to another section that cools it off and brings it in to cool the machines. So that that closed loop means it's a lot less water than people saying, but you're using gallons and gallons and gallons of water per thing. It's that water's not disappearing, it's just getting used again. And so the amount of water that's come up from both ChatGPT and Google, the amount of water that they use and the amount of power that they use.
Okay. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
covered that off. It's a question. I am in an intentional learning group about that covers AI on a monthly
Yeah.
basis
Yeah.
with our friends at the United Methodist Camping
Yeah.
Association. And it was one of those things when we were planning sort of what to talk about on a monthly basis, at any point, where does that come into the conversation? The people who
Sure.
joined month one, not the biggest concern for them. But
Yeah.
that's all good information to have. So
Yeah.
um,
And I think the other important part of this, Joe, is that with AI frees up so much time for you and your team that you can create more, you can save more, you can be bigger picture thinker because you have the time and energy that you didn't before. And it allows small camp teams, which are often, 1 to 5 people running a camp office during the winter. It allows those teams to accomplish as much as basically double that, almost double that with that many bodies.
And one of the things I would like to point out, and I think I can say over and over and over again, is although AI saves you time, it saves you lots of time. It does not replace connection, right? It
No,
does
no, no.
not. In fact, what it's doing is saving you time to have
Gi-
more connection to people,
yes,
be
gives you
that to
space.
your camper parents, your campers, your staff members, right? Part of what when I read through the notes on the resilient blueprint, right, is that connection is a huge part of this, and all what we're using when we're saving time and on one side is we're creating time for us to phone someone or to reach out directly to someone.
Yeah, 100%. The If camp directors had more time and could do things like send a quick message to a member of last year's staff that they'd like to come back and just keep connected with them, that saves them so much time not having to go through a whole interview and review process. It saves them time and having to go out and find a fresh body to fill this space. And so the time savings is a especially now that, like, I've used to have to say, yeah, I get the environmental stuff, but I will still save more money. It'll be worth it. We can have more impact. But now I think the environmental impact is there, but I'm not embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
And the amount of time I can save to care for people, totally worth it.
And the other thing I continually see, if just to put a point on AI, is that there are people out there in this world who think it's a fad, right? Or
Oh
they
yeah.
think they've missed it because they're all, and what I hear time and time again from the people I follow on TikTok and YouTube, I know that some of those
Mm-hmm.
are the same people you follow, is that we are still at the infancy of this, right? You
Yeah.
still, by knowing a little bit, you'll be way ahead of a whole bunch of people. And
Yeah.
if you can get one system in place that uses AI for the better for your camp, you're going to be ahead of most other camps at this moment in time.
100%. Yeah.
What do you most want people to know as they, because there's camp directors who are recovering from the summer
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
are super tired. I have a whole theory on burnout, which isn't great for other people, but it's great for me. They can feel burnt out because they have a commitment. They've put themselves out way too hard during the summer. They're running a sprint every summer, not a marathon, and that's a
Yeah.
whole other conversation. But what can they start, like what they're not too late because it's early in
No
the
way.
cycle. And so if they could do one thing today, what's the one thing you would have them what one
Uh,
thing would you
well,
have them do with the extra time they've created?
no, with the extra time created, that's great. The extra time and space for people time, all of that amplifies in such a way. So it is reach out to a potential donor. It's send a personal personal email to a camp parent who was great to your staff this year, like you've got time to recognize and reward those things that are long-term plays. You want to reward parents who are great to your staff because you want more of them. And you want that person to do that more. You want them to know that how appreciated it is because being a camp counselor is a hard job. So all of that personal stuff is what I would do with the spare time.
So reaching out to a camp parent, because that might lead to a referral, or reaching out to a camp staff, which would lead to an easy return, or for them to find a friend and just maintain that personal connection. I know that I used to work for a camp director who would handwrite every birthday card to every camper and staff member. Fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just because that was part of his everyday. This is like in the early 2000s. That was just part
Yeah.
of his everyday thing.
Is birthday cards. Well, I would think, and I mean, who knows, but I would suspect that that person doesn't have that kind of time anymore, or they've had to hire people to clear space for them to spend time on running birthday cards. And if now you have AI to do that for you, to clear
Yeah.
that space. So I've given you my top three, and they're tools, but they're also techniques. Like they're the first things to do to start to save yourselves time. Inside ChatGPT, I would be building custom instruction, custom GPTs, or custom projects that have all of your data in it. Like I have taken the last 3 years of camper zip codes and I put them into ChatGPT and I said, help me draw a pattern about what parents pick this camp. Like if you don't have space, you don't get to do that kind of thing. And so you just create those things that you can repeat.
That's awesome. And when you do things like that, what's the most surprising thing you found that would have with, let's say, with postal codes or zip codes, when you put those into GPT, what are some of the findings that AI finds that you're like, oh, yeah, why didn't we think of this as human beings?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a pattern matching machine. So you see what cities or towns you have a lot of people in. And as a camp director, that allows me to prioritize those neighborhoods because we are known in those neighborhoods. So again, that's less effort. Interesting thing that's the next step beyond this or what we've done with this kind of data. We have a camp, a girls camp in the States who's changing up how their summer schedule works. And they want to do more partnerships. They want to reach out to more organizations. So we went through and took those camps 12 stated values, very public values. We took the postal codes and it's a girls camp. So we said, using these three pieces of data, girls camp, these values, these zip codes, find me clubs or sports that are girl and young women focused that are close to these neighborhoods that we can prioritize as potential partners for these camp. And so it's really just a marketing promotion partnership because we're able to target them and say, we have a list of 50. Our next step, so we've sort of prioritized those according to match of values, but I hope this doesn't sound too overwhelmingly technical, but I'm like, this kind of number stuff isn't my happy place. But once I get going, I was like, okay, I can see the next step to what I can do. But when we have a list of 50 organizations that serve the same people that this camp wants to serve, we can now put that out to the camp families and say, who belongs to these clubs? Who's on these teams? And friends, cousins, not just necessarily your camper daughter, and then who can help us make those connections. So partnerships are the fourth most effective way to get new campers and staff, or to get your campers and staff for next year. And so
Remind me, what do you consider the first three most important ways?
Repeat. So get last year's campers to come back, refer, get them to bring their friends, rally your community. So use everybody that knows and loves your camp to help you get campers and staff, and then relationships.
Awesome. Yeah.
I prioritized this list because I got so tired of hearing how much money camps were spending on Google ads or SEO stuff that just it has a measurable effect, but it's nowhere near as effective as those first four things.
Yeah. And I think a lot of young people especially, and maybe, they can kick me for saying this, but think that social media is going to be the solution for all of their marketing problems.
Yeah. Which is interesting because it's not. it can be a support system. It's definitely in the fifth category. Like that's the rest. And as someone who made their name in this industry as being the camp social media guy, I rarely talk to clients about social media anymore. There are specific targeted things, but that's for camps that have done everything they can in the first four categories. Then start playing around.
So and just let me know if I'm getting off the trail at all, Travis, but like in today's setting, if I had an extra 10 hours or I could hire someone for 10 hours a week to do something for camp, what is the what would get me to be what would start building a more resilient camp for us? If I just had if
Yep.
I took our social media person and I was like,
Yep.
"Listen, stop doing that. Do this instead."
Yep.
Or I took any position. It doesn't have to be
Sure.
that, but
Yeah. Yeah. The look at each of those effective steps: retain, refer, rally, and relationships, or relate, and give them stuff to do in there. So you should, I hate saying should, but I think camps that are resilient have a list that is known amongst their year-round staff or is on a poster. It's like, here's last year's campers. Are they signed up yet? And if the answer is no, then that person's writing them a postcard. They're sending them a message. Maybe they're putting out a specific message on social media. It's not that social media should not be done. It's just it's icing. And so a personal contact with that camper and their parents until you have that person locked up. And then I would be looking at what tools can I give my people to help them refer campers and staff to back to us. That's families, that's the community. All those things are just the other part about those things, Joe, is that each one of those three things is a moneymaker.
yeah, we
Part of
should.
resilience is acknowledging that we need to have more sources of income and more money in the bank.
And that's one of my big things is what have you done today to generate income for camp? But that
Yep.
sounds so
Yep.
crass, but that can be
But it's
campers.
resilient thinking. It's
Yeah.
resilient thinking. And not enough camp directors are asking that question of themselves or of their teams.
Camp directors or camp boards for that matter, right?
Yep.
Boards of
Yep.
directors for nonprofits that are out there. And I know that both private and nonprofit camps listen to our podcast and
Yep.
to many of our podcasts, but it's one of those things where resiliency is especially challenging for new camp directors because they don't fully understand the culture they're getting into or what they were told isn't what is actually happening on the ground.
100%. Yep.
Or you have camp boards that have had the same people. I no word of a lie, I talked to one recently since like the 1980s, have the same people in charge of things, and that's that old guard. And as we try to get more millennials on our camp boards to move that process, more fully forward, I think that all of these items are super important.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I quit working at camp full time in 2007, and if I didn't have this job and I just quit camp and went on to another job, I would have no idea what it means to run a camp these days. Like the difference in the last 15 years is remarkable. Since 2021, the difference in camp is remarkable. And so that is a concern both with a board or an owner team that is not specifically asking what do we need to change. It's not committed to making those small changes all the time. You just get stuck. And that's not what a resilient camp does. It's too much
And
time and energy.
And so, not to gloss over what you just said, small changes, right?
Yes.
This is what we want people to leave with today is this idea that it's not about a big change. It's not about and with future scenario planning, that's the same thing. It's not about one single big, oh my God, we need to do this thing. You're just like, hey, what can we do today to sort of point us towards that future that we love, right? And
Yep.
if that's calling 3 camper parents a day from the camp phone, that's a small thing. To me, it's a
Yeah.
small thing because I don't mind calling people on the phone, cold calling people who we already have a relationship with.
Yeah.
Some of my younger staff find calling on the phone to be a very different experience, and that's part of
Right.
training them. But once again, it's what are the small changes we can make is the key.
Yeah. And that's an interesting sort of resilience vision, Joe, is training your staff to be able to talk on the phone is a good long-term play for your camp.
Yeah. And I
And it's
don't,
small. You can make a practice. My parents are as nerdy as I am and made me practice talking on the phone when I was a kid.
oh,
And they made me, call to make appointments, those kind of things, call our neighbors to ask for a ride. I was super uncomfortable with those, but I got practice with that when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So we just have to make space to do that. And that's a long-term play for your camp to have your staff be comfortable on the phone.
it's funny. I remember like just being able to answer the phone.
Yeah,
You had to show how you could answer the phone. Now
absolutely.
this is in the time of like landlines that are
The
wired
party
to the,
lines.
yeah, but like you had to be
Yeah,
like, "Hello, this is a Richards family. How can I help you today?"
totally.
And not say, not do a prank or something of that nature when
Sure.
you answer the
Yeah,
phone. You
yeah.
can only do that when your parents are away, but that's all good. That is great. This has been awesome. This has been great. Where can people find more about the Resilient Camp Blueprint? And I know that there's a diagnostic. Is that something that anyone can do?
100%. Yeah, it's built for camp leaders. It is it's broad enough that it can be about your specific job, or you can do it for your camp. And that's where I'd like people to go. So if you go to camp.mba slash ahead, you'll get to that diagnostic. And I would encourage people who are starting to make these changes to redo the diagnostic every month or so, every couple of months, because that's where you're going to start to measure differences. That's where you're going to start to see the change. But if you do that, I'll send you a whole bunch of resources, including something inspired by Joe, which I posted in the chat there, Joe, which is a print off of the most important sort of philosophies of the Resilient Camp Blueprint that'll fold up into one of those little magic books like you do with your kids when you're getting to vision themselves at camp.
Into the into the zine. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is
So
great.
that's a straight inspired by Joe Mayev.
Perfect.
But I've also built it, Joe, so that people can, and you'll get this once you do the diagnostic. There's a print offable version, and I know camps that are printing it off without talking, like they're sitting in a circle without talking, filling this in and putting it all on the table and saying, okay, where do you think we score? And then
Mm.
seeing how people see it differently, but also just setting a baseline. Like, great, there's where we score now. Let's check it again in 2 months.
So how do they print it off if where's the printable version if they're
Once they fill out the digital online version, they'll get follow-up emails. And one of
okay.
the follow-up emails, I think it's within the first 24 hours, is the print offable version. So if
And
they go
so
to camp.mba/ahead, they'll get to take it and they'll be able to find the extra tools.
And so that's great because one of the things is, as someone who's been in their own site for 21 summers, it's
Yeah.
important to let other people at least tell me where they think we are as a site.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
know that we didn't talk, I know that culture is a huge part of this
Yep.
in building resilient camps. I was talking yesterday at the networking event with some people who were our reputation as Pierce Williams is sound in the community.
Mhm.
People like it, but what is also good is that it's not that it's a community reputation and that it's a group that people. I've worked really hard, and some camp directors, as you and I
Yes.
have talked about in the past, there's a cult of the camp director, right? And if a camp director leaves, does the camp slowly die? And the
Yeah.
reality is to be an amazing camp director and executive director, you want to leave all of these systems and processes in place to make sure that camp and that community can go on.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That is
Mhm.
great. Anything surprising you learned today, Travis? That's one of the things we do at the end of our camp aheads. Any aha moments or things that caused you to pause?
I mean, I am impressed. Let's put it like, I'm impressed that there is a group of camps meeting to talk about big picture things, and it's something that you're doing regularly. I'm not surprised, but those things aren't always all that well known. And I think you end up with people who are the ones who will spend the time to make their camp be more resilient, who then get to have these conversations and have space for that. So that's great. I love that that's happening.
Yeah. And mine was this idea of, I love that idea of the postal codes research because that's doable. That's easy in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's camp, we use Camp Brain here, but that's simple data that I can pull. And I know that most of our campers come from within the county bounds of our facility.
Yeah.
So from within Elgin County here in Ontario. And I also love the idea of small everyday, small things people can do every day, because we've talked here as a staff about this idea that you should think of AI as augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and use it to save time so that you have time to do other things. So,
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that has been awesome. Thank you for joining us today, Travis. That's great. And that has been Camp Ahead, and we will see you at the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Camp Ahead, exploring the futurology of the summer camp industry. Don't forget to check out our contact information and show notes at gocamp.pro/campahead. Camp Ahead is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network. Find a podcast for camp pros of every age and stage at gocamp.pro/podcast. Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, we ask that whenever you get something great from a conference session, one of these podcasts, from the Camp Pros group on Facebook, wherever else, that you give credit where credit is due. That way, people can feel comfortable about sharing their best practices and continue to make all of our camps better.